Thank you for having me here. I'm also a big fan of ideas. I think about them all the time, so it's happy to share some with you today. So this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to recreate some radio for you. I need sound on this, if it's going to work. This is the magic of live radio. Sometimes it doesn't work. It's all the way up. Yep. What I love about live radio is this. I know you all want it to go well, but part of your mind is like, if something terrible happens, it's actually pretty interesting. It's kind of like watching a car race. All right, here we go. I tell radio stories about design, and I report on all kinds of stories, buildings and toothbrushes and mascots and wayfinding and fonts. But my mission is to get people to engage in the design that they care about, so they pay attention to all forms of design. When you begin to decode the world with design intent in mind, the world becomes kind of magical. Instead of seeing the broken things, you focus on the little bits of genius that everyday designers, anonymous designers, have sweated over to make our lives better. And that's essentially the definition of design, making life better and providing joy. And few things give me greater joy than a well-designed flag. That is the flag of Canada, our fellow North Americans. I love flags. I'm kind of obsessed with them. Sometimes I bring up the topic of flags and people are like, I don't really care about flags. But then I start talking to them, and trust me, 100% of people care about flags. There's something about them that just works on our emotions. This year for Christmas, my family wrapped up all my presents as flags, including that blue gift bag up there that's dressed up like the flag of Scotland. I put this picture online, and sure enough, some English jerk wrote a comment, "You can take that Scottish saltire and shove it up your ass." So you see what I mean? People are passionate about flags. They can't help it. One of the things I love about flags is that once you understand the design of flags, what makes a good flag, what makes a bad flag, you can understand the design of almost anything. In 3, 2, this is 99% invisible. I'm Roman Mars. According to the North American Vexillological Association. Vexillological.
Vexillology is the study of flags.
It's that extra lull in there that makes it sound weird.
Number 1, keep it simple. The flag should be so simple that a child can draw it from memory.
Before I moved to Chicago in 2005, I didn't even know cities had their own flags.
Most larger cities do have flags.
Well, I didn't know that. That's Ted Kay, by the way.
Hello.
He's a flag expert. He's this totally awesome guy.
I'm Ted Kay. I have edited a scholarly journal on flag studies, and I'm currently involved with the Portland Flag Association and the North American Vexillological Association.
Ted literally wrote the book on flag design.
Good flag, bad flag.
It's kind of a pamphlet, really. It's actually about 16 pages.
Yes, it's called Good Flag, Bad Flag, How to Design a Great Flag.
And that first city flag I discovered in Chicago is a beaut. White field, 2 horizontal blue stripes, and 4 6-pointed red stars across the middle.
Number 2, use meaningful symbolism.
The blue stripes represent the water, the river, and the lake.
The flag's images, colors, or patterns should relate to what it symbolizes.
The red stars represent significant events in Chicago's history.
Namely, the founding of Fort Dearborn on the future site of Chicago, the Great Chicago Fire, the World Columbian Exposition, which everyone remembers because of the White City, and the Century of Progress Exposition, which no one remembers at all.
Number 3, use 2 to 3 basic colors.
The basic rule for colors is to use 2 to 3 colors from the standard color set: red, white, blue, green, yellow, and black.
The design of the Chicago flag has complete buy-in with the entire cross-section of the city. You see tattoos of it. Every municipal building flies the flag.
Like there's probably at least one story every block near where work that sells some sort of Chicago flag paraphernalia.
That's Wet Moser from Chicago Magazine.
Today, just for example, I went to get a haircut, and when I sat down in the barber's chair, there was a Chicago flag on the box that the barbers kept all his tools in, and then in the mirror, there was a Chicago flag on the wall behind me. When I left, the guy passed me who had a Chicago flag badge on his backpack.
It's adaptable and remixable. The six-pointed stars in particular show up in all kinds of places.
The coffee I bought the other day had a Chicago star on it.
It's a distinct symbol of Chicago pride.
When a police officer or a firefighter dies in Chicago, often it's not the flag of the United States on his casket. It can be the flag of the city of Chicago. That's how deeply the flag has gotten into the civic imagery of Chicago.
And it isn't just that people love Chicago and therefore love the flag. I also think that people love Chicago more because the flag is so cool.
A positive feedback loop there between great symbolism and civic pride.
All right. So when I moved back to San Francisco in 2008, I researched its flag because I had never seen it in the previous 8 years I lived there, and I found it, I am sorry to say, sadly lacking.
Well, let me start from the top.
Number one, keep it simple.
Keeping it simple.
The flag should be so simple that a child can draw it from memory.
It's a relatively complex flag.
The main component of the San Francisco flag is a phoenix representing the city rising from the ashes after the devastating fires of the 1850s.
A powerful symbol for San Francisco.
I still don't really dig the phoenix. Design-wise, it manages to be both too crude and have too many details at the same time, which if you were trying for it, you wouldn't be able to achieve that, and it just looks bad at a distance. But having deep meaning at least puts that element in the plus column. Behind the phoenix, the background is mostly white, but it also has this substantial gold border around it.
Which is a very attractive design element.
I think it's okay. But here come the big no-nos of flag design.
Number four, no lettering or seals. Never use writing of any kind.
Underneath the phoenix, there's a motto on a ribbon that translates to gold in peace, iron in war. Plus, and this is the big problem, it says San Francisco across the bottom.
If you need to write the name of what you're representing on your flag, your symbolism has failed.
The United States flag doesn't say USA across the front. In fact, flags of countries tend to behave, so hats off to South Africa and Turkey and Israel and Japan and Gambia and Somalia. There's a bunch of other country flags. They tend to be really great. They obey good design principles because the stakes are high. They're on the international stage, but city, state, and regional flags are another story. There is a scourge of bad flags, and they must be stopped. The first step is to recognize that we have a problem. A lot of people tend to think that good design is just a matter of taste. And to be fair, sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. Here's the full list of NAVA flag design principles.
The 5 basic principles of flag design. Number one,
Keep it simple.
keep it simple. Number two,
Use meaningful symbolism.
number three,
Use 2 to 3 basic colors.
number four,
No lettering or seals,
never use writing of any kind.
because you can't read that at a distance
Number five,
and be distinctive.
All the best flags tend to stick to these principles. And like I said before, almost all country flags do a pretty good job. But here's the thing. If I showed this list of principles to any designer of almost anything, they would likely say that those principles, simplicity, deep meaning, a few colors, uniqueness, don't have writing you can't read, these are all principles that apply to all design. But sadly, good design principles are rarely invoked in U.S. city flags. Our biggest problem seems to be that fourth rule. We just can't stop ourselves from putting names and generic-looking municipal seals with tiny words on them on our flags. Municipal seals are meant to be used on pieces of paper where you can read them, not on flags 100 feet away flapping in the breeze. So here's a bunch of city flags. Vexillologists call these SOBs, seal on a bedsheet. And if you can't tell what any of those cities are, that's exactly the problem. You have no idea. Anaheim seems to have figured something out, but everyone else, you really can't tell what those flags are all about. But the equivalent, the European equivalent of a city seal is a city coat of arms. And this is where we can take a lesson how to do things right. So this is the coat of arms for the city of Amsterdam. Now, if Amsterdam were in the United States, and sometimes I really wish it was, the flag would probably look like this. Yeah. Because we're idiots. But instead, the flag of Amsterdam looks like this. Rather than plopping the whole coat of arms on a solid background and writing Amsterdam on it, the design just takes the key elements of the escutcheon and turns it into the most badass city flag in the world. And because of that, the flags and crosses are used everywhere in Amsterdam, just like Chicago. Even though a seal on a bedsheet flag are particularly painful and boring to me, nothing can quite prepare you for one of the biggest train wrecks in vexillological history, the flag of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I mean, it's distinctive. I will give them that one.
It was adopted in 1955.
The city ran a contest and gathered a bunch of submissions with all kinds of designs.
And an alderman by the name of Fred Stephan cobbled together parts of the submissions to make what is now the Milwaukee flag.
It's a kitchen sink flag. It's got a gigantic gear representing industry. It's got a ship recognizing the port, a giant stalk of wheat to pay homage to the brewing industry. It is a hot mess. And Steve Kotis, a graphic designer from Milwaukee, wants to change it.
It is, it's really awful. It's a misstep on the city's behalf, to say the least.
But what puts the Milwaukee flag over the top, almost to the point of self-parody, is that on it is a picture of the Civil War battle flag of the Milwaukee Regiment.
So that's the final element in it that just makes it that much more sort of ridiculous that there is, a flag design within the design of the Milwaukee flag.
Now, Milwaukee is a fantastic city. I have been there many times. I love it. The most depressing part of this flag, though, is that there have been two major redesign contests for the Milwaukee flag. The last one was held in 2001. 105 entries were received.
But in the end, the members of the Milwaukee Flags Board decided that none of the new entries were worthy of flag of the city.
They couldn't agree to change that thing. That's discouraging enough to make you think that good design and democracy simply do not go together. But Steve Kotis is going to try one more time to change the Milwaukee flag.
I believe Milwaukee's a great city. Every great city deserves a great flag.
Steve isn't ready to reveal his flag yet. He's still in the process of gathering support. But here's a trick. If you want to design a good flag, a kick-ass flag like Chicago's or DC's, I think Washington, D.C. has a great flag, start by drawing a 1 by 1.5 inch rectangle on a piece of paper. Your design has to work within that tiny rectangle. Here's why.
A 3 by 5 foot flag on a pole 100 feet away looks about the same size as a 1 by 1.5 inch rectangle seen about 15 inches from your eye. You'd be surprised at how compelling and simple the design can be when you hold yourself to that limitation.
Meanwhile, back in San Francisco, is there anything we can do?
I like to say that if every bad flag is a good flag trying to get out, the way to make San Francisco's flag a good flag is to take the motto off, because you can't read that at a distance. Take the name off, and the border might even be made thicker, so it's more a part of the flag. And I would simply take the phoenix and make it a great big element in the middle of the flag.
But the current Phoenix has got to go.
I would simplify or stylize the phoenix, depict a big wide-winged bird coming out of the flames, emphasize those flames.
This San Francisco flag design was by Frank Camaro. It's based on Ted Kay's suggestions. I think it's a great start. It gives you an idea of the potential. Fans of my radio show and podcast have heard me bang on about bad flags, and they have sent in their suggested designs. This one's by Neil Mussett. Both are so much better, and I think if any parts of them were adopted, I would see them around town. In my crusade to make the flags of the world more beautiful, many listeners have taken it upon themselves to redesign their flags and look into the feasibility of getting something new adopted officially. If you see your city flag and like it, fly it, even if it violates a design rule or two. I don't care. But if you don't see your flag, maybe it doesn't exist, or maybe it does, and it just sucks. And I dare you to get involved in the effort to change that. As we move more and more into cities, the city flag will not only be a symbol of the city as a place, but also a symbol of how the city considers design itself, especially today as the populace becomes more design aware. And I think design awareness is at an all-time high. A well-designed city flag could be seen as an indicator for how the city regards all of its design systems, its public transit, its signage, its parks. It might seem frivolous, but to me, it is not.
Often when city leaders say, we have more important things to do than worry about a city flag, my response is, if you had a great city flag, you would have a banner for people to rally under to face those more important things.
I've seen firsthand what a good city flag can do in the case of Chicago. The marriage of good design and civic pride is something we need in all places. The best part about municipal flags is that we own them. They are an open source, publicly owned design language of the community. If they are designed well, they are remixable and they are powerful. We could control the branding and graphical imagery of the cities we live in with the right flag, but instead, by making bad flags that no one uses, we are ceding that ground to sports teams and chambers of commerce and tourism boards. Sports teams can leave town and break our hearts, and chambers of commerce and tourism boards can just do campaigns that are cheesy. But a good flag is something that represents the city to its people and its people to the world at large. And when that flag is a beautiful thing, that connection is a beautiful thing. So maybe we can make all the city flags as inspiring as Hong Kong's or Portland's or Trondheim's, and we get rid of the bad flags like San Francisco and Milwaukee and Cedar Rapids. And maybe when we're all done, we can finally do something about Pocatello, Idaho, considered by the North American Vexillological Association as the worst city flag in North America. Yeah, that thing has a trademark symbol on it. That's not good. We need to change that. Thank you so much for listening.